Thanks, guys, for having me. It's really nice to see how this conference has advanced. I always enjoy seeing all of the other things that are happening on the island outside of the life sciences space and the biotech space. We all kind of get in our own little verticals and don't see these things, but it's really exciting. I'm going to do a broad panel introduction, but let me introduce myself first. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm a former minor league baseball player that couldn't figure out how to throw a curveball for strikes in the big leagues. So I retired and took advantage of Major League Baseball's college scholarship program, ended up getting 6 advanced graduate degrees. And what that makes me qualified to do is basically be the graduate student that professors and doctors talk to about translating their innovations into companies. So I've done that a number of times. I've done it all over the world, and I use non-dilutive funding. This is grants and licensing and tax credits to do that. So in the last 20 years, I've started businesses in Belgium, Canada, Texas, Germany, Australia, all trying to optimize for what I think is the best place in the world to start a life science business, which is Puerto Rico. So the panel today will be about my experiences, the panel's experience on building out biotechnologies in Puerto Rico, and then also giving you a vision about what I think the next 10 years will look like in the biotech space. The innovation is absolutely breathtaking, and you'll leave here surprised at what these guys are working on and how much it's going to change the world. So that's a little of my background. Next, I'd like to introduce Buddy, and then have you guys introduce yourselves to the crowd, and then also talk about your company and what it does and how you made it to Puerto Rico.
Will, thank you. As Will said, my name is Buddy Gadams. I've been living on the island now for about 3 years. Like Will, I'm a serial entrepreneur, but I've tinkered in a bunch of stuff, not necessarily all on the life science side, and I can get to that. But I'm here for Rialto Life Sciences. We are moving that company to the island where we're going to do the R&D and the manufacturing here. This is a company that goes back hundreds of millions of years. I kid you not. They took the science from a virus that doesn't cause an inflammatory response in your body called the astrovirus, and they were able to figure out how to copy it. And so the next time there's a pandemic and your lungs hyperreact, 2 years from now, hopefully you'll be using our drug, whether you get sepsis or a concussion or some bacterial infection. 99 out of 100 things that kill you are your own body's response. And so that's what we have. And we're in phase 2 clinical trials all over the world, and for COPD, graft versus host, and HIE, which is babies' brains. Puerto Rico is going to be a tremendous partner with us on that. So, it's biotech today, but when I'm in the States, it's real estate.
Thanks, Buddy. Raj, go ahead.
Thank you. Well, great to be here, and really appreciate the panel you've put together, Will. So I'm Raj Malhotra. I'm founder and CEO of SmartWeave. I'll talk about SmartWeave in a moment. I myself also, like these other gentlemen, am a serial founder and have built some sizable companies. I started one of the largest medical document management companies in the country, which grew to several thousand people and is now part of Microsoft. What drew me to Puerto Rico is that I felt that there was an valuation gap, in the sense that some of the workforces and technologies that had historically been on the island were undervalued, and so saw that opportunity to really leverage that R&D base, which is what we are doing with SmartWeave. SmartWeave is a bioconvergence platform, so this is a company that operates at the intersection of artificial intelligence, synthetic biology, and advanced manufacturing. And what we are building with this combination is a next generation of smart tissues. These are tissues that will revolutionize how people treat everything from wounds to urological care to cardiac patches, and a whole range of other modalities in orthopedics and so on. Very excited to be here. We'll pass it along.
Great, thanks, Raj. Daniel?
Hi, my name is Daniel Chang. I'm the CFO and the co-founder for Bioscience Corp. So we are here in Puerto Rico trying to build a life science technology hub for basically getting clients into our facility. So our business model is a little different than others, right? Where the other model, business model, are more like, you give me your technology, we basically build your product for you. However, our model basically lease a space for you, and then we build the facility for you, and then we can help you. Like for instance, the most expensive, the capital expenditure for any startup company is actually building the facility. And for us, we actually build that facility for you, customize it for you. So instead of spending hundreds of $millions, you could just basically spend $10-20 million, and you have the facility, and you don't even need to hire your own resource. We can, most of the startup company at the beginning, they cannot utilize all the resource right away, and we will help them out by saying, if you need to do a clinical run, we will run it for you. And then when you're running clinical, you don't need those people. We just redeploy those people somewhere else. So that's our business model. And we actually, we have our own first client, right? We have a biosimilar solution. And then that will be the first client that actually go into our facility. That's what. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Daniel. So could you talk about just what's involved in the operation in terms of people and place, and then how Puerto Rico was better than your situation and set up in California?
So there are multiple reasons why we picked Puerto Rico, and the key benefit of coming to Puerto Rico are three, right? One, the tax incentive. The second one is the availability of facility. And the third one is actually, contrary to a lot of people's belief, is actually availability of talent. So before coming to Puerto Rico, we've been looking at Australia, Ireland, India, China, everywhere, right? Even in the state where we want to stay in the U.S., right? So California and Massachusetts also are the one that we select. The reason why we selected Puerto Rico is, one, we are still part of U.S. Second, the tax incentive is greater than anything's out there, right? So even in Australia, I think they gave out like 40% incentive. Over here is 50% all inclusive. So that's really good. That's one of the reasons. The other one is availability of facilities. So we in partner with Prico, and Pricos have millions of square foot of facility around the islands. So initially, when we came in, I think 3 years ago, we were looking for one building, and they took us around, and we found the building that we want. And then, a couple of years later, we thought, we outgrown that, and we need another building. And they were able to give us another building right across the street. So we have two buildings right next to each other. And now we're thinking about 3 to 5 years, and we're looking for a technology hub. And so we're looking for like 5-6 more buildings. And they were able to, working with them, they were able to get the adjacent building and have that. So the availability of a facility is very important. If I were going to go to like California or Massachusetts, if I grow like that, most likely I have to go further and further away. So that's the second reason, right? And the third one, like I said, contrary to a lot of people, the talents. Most of the biologic drugs actually was produced in the U.S. In Puerto Rico. So there's a lot of talents. And we picked the Aguadilla to be our facility because not only of the availability of talents, but we are very close to one of the best university in Puerto Rico, which is University of Mile West. And we're working directly with them to make sure that they can get the resource that we need. And then we partner with them right now. At any one point, we would have internship, not only summer, but throughout the year. We get a lot of the students from University of Mile West coming in and help us. So those are the key advantages of that. That's why we picked Puerto Rico.
Great, thanks, Daniel. So Raj, could you talk about Puerto Rico's got a base of manufacturing expertise, but could you talk to us about where you see the future of biomanufacturing and how Puerto Rico might help that future?
Yeah, thank you. Well, so we see being this economy, as well as frankly the world at large, being at a bit of a phase change point in terms of the kinds of manufacturing that it's going to go through. We ourselves are intending to build out 3D printer farms. So our devices, implants, will be built and manufactured using precision 3D printing kinds of technologies. And we anticipate very much that we'll be building out that kind of infrastructure on the island. So there would be large printer farms that will be churning out aspects that will be important for, of course, our technologies, but also for other clients that we may have. And they may be companies that include, of course, medical device majors, but also hospitals and clinics who might want to use the same kind of base to produce parts of their own devices or to produce training materials for students and so on. This sort of shift from mass-produced devices that are made on an assembly line and have been very much part of the past industrial revolution is now going to give way to the future that Will, you were asking about, which is going to be much more personalized devices, personalized medicine, that it will be done for an individual. And so that trend is an unbeatable trend. And we see very much the advantages that Puerto Rico brings in terms of its deep experience and expertise in GMP processes being very applicable to that next generation. Because effectively, Puerto Rico could become the advanced manufacturing hub for this next generation as it comes down. And it sort of as this new generation of manufacturing supplants or coexists with the previous one. And in that case, you know, the advantages don't just go to big factory type of scale environments. They also go to agile environments that are much more tailored to a particular indication, to a particular type of disease process, or a particular type of even individual patient type. And that's, I think, where Puerto Rico's future lies within that biomanufacturing sector.
Great, thanks, Raj. So, Buddy, could you describe your real estate tax credit experience and how that's helped in terms of financing projects, and then the advantage to this non-dilutive funding and tax incentives here in Puerto Rico? How it's going to help Rialto?
Sure can. So I mentioned that back in the States, I have a real estate development company that does stuff in the Southeast. And over the last 20 years or so, you know, we've done billions of dollars of historic tax credit buildings, and I call the historic tax credits my venture capital partner that doesn't talk back. I don't have to have meetings with them. So they're very easy to communicate with. And that, I think, you know, when Will and some of the other folks, when economic development talked to me about the incentives that we have here, I could quickly look and see how that could be a major impact on growing a business rapidly, and also the non-dilutive funding. Just to give you an idea, you know, just with, you know, let's call it $30 million. If you have a $100 million value, let's say you're going to get $15 million in tax credits. Over 4 years, 5 years, you're going to get $30 million in tax credits on that $30 million. So we may have, you know, not diluted ourselves by 30% just by looking to those tax credits that we got by looking at Puerto Rico. We did look at all different countries. We looked at Australia. You know, like Daniel was saying, we looked at Ireland. We looked at other places that we could do the R&D and that we could manufacture it. And we kept coming back that really, before we even knew the nuances, that Puerto Rico was the best place. And then you take those tax credits, you throw the labor pool, all the STEM graduates, 20,000 folks that are graduating a year for people that you're going to need to hire, and you really have a great recipe. You know, there are a lot of laws that came out after COVID as well that that make Puerto Rico quite a place to do business because, just from COVID, we need to really manufacture things in the U.S. if we want to sell it, in the U.S. And Puerto Rico is considered being part of that, which is excellent. But yeah, the tax credits really are a way to supercharge, any business without having to have a whole laundry list of partners.
Great, thanks, Buddy. So in terms of the capital stack, there's the ongoing 50-cent tax credit. There is one-time relocation grants that the government will give you in order to relocate. And I want to highlight a point that Buddy made, which is, let's say you earn $10 million in tax credits your first year of operation. When you get those tax credits and spend them, you earn another $5 million the following year. The following year, you make $2.5 million the following year. And so it becomes more like an annuity. And when you think about the compounding effect of the tax credit over a 4-year time period, it's a lot closer to 130% of your money back. So 50 cents on the dollar, but that dollar is compounded over that 4-year time period as the tax credits are going. So I mentioned that because, Daniel, you've been able to do, I think, some advanced financial engineering with your capital stack. Could you talk a little bit about that, not just the tax credit, but some of the other incentives and federal programs that might be interesting?
Yeah, there were a couple of I think you were talking about non-diluted financing, right? So in addition to all, okay, let's talk about the incentive, government incentive first, right? I always focus on two things, right? The first one was the R&D tax credit, where you get 50% back. The second one that not a lot of people have been talking about is actually when you start making money, you're actually paying only 4% tax rate. And so not only that, the government actually give you an incentive for coming in right now, because startup we really need the what we call the expanding the money, right? Every dollar that you got, like Rob was saying, you go from anywhere between getting back from 1.5 to almost $2, right? So that's very good for a startup because you're expanding your money. Once you get out of that startup mode and going into manufacturing and start making profit, 4% interest rate is excellent. So therefore, you can keep more of their money, and then you can reinvest more and all that. So that's one. And there were a couple others incentives that we're getting. We are applying for grants, and there were like for instance the IPG grant that we were applying, that they also give us a loan, but then if we meet certain criteria, 50% of the loan will be forgiven. And the loan interest rate was only 2%. So that's the other one. The third one, we'll probably know, was the BDE loan. The BDE loan basically give you the loan for equipment that you purchase. And basically they give you the loan of 70% and at a very low interest rate. So those are the other incentive that we're getting from Puerto Rico that you can get anywhere else.
Thanks, Daniel. The other thing to mention, I've been here since 2016, and there's been a lot of technology entrepreneurs that have relocated, but there's also been a lot of financial fintech experts that have come from the mainland, and they've brought their expertise in creating financial instruments to be helpful for startups. And so one of those is the idea of, you earn the tax credit of $10 million, you can now finance that tax credit in advance of getting the cash in a loan. And so Cytomune, where I'm the president, we financed our tax credit in advance of getting it with Banco Popular. And that was very effective for us to be able to jumpstart the operations, and ended up helping us to secure institutional capital on the equity side. And so all of that has really been developed, I'd say, over the last 3 to 5 years. And you have new funds coming up, like the Puerto Rico Innovation Fund, that are institutionalizing the ability to make those tax credits faster and cheaper in the form of the financing. Good. So that's the what's the catch discussion that usually happen when you talk with entrepreneurs. You literally talk to them and they say, well, what's the catch? So now let's transition. What kind of challenges have you experienced, Buddy? What kind of challenges have you experienced in Puerto Rico so far And what are some gotchas that you wish you could go back and fix?
Well, I think first of all, not that many people are familiar with Puerto Rico. And so, we have a board that, we all have to answer to. I'm on the board, but I only get one vote. I think you have to get your hands around who the decision makers are just as quickly as possible. You need to bring them down here. You need to set up meetings with folks like Ocean Bio to talk about space and how quickly that you can get that space. We're currently building out a space at Ocean Bio. You need to talk with the Department of Economic Development, DECA on the tax credits. Will mentioned the fact that we can monetize these tax credits ahead of time, where we can take that $30 million and maybe borrow $20 million in advance. So all of a sudden we have $50 million. These are all meetings, I think, that are very prudent to set up, with who the decision makers are going to be that are coming down to understand that, this is a very serious, player. Half of the island is pharmaceutical and medical devices. Also from a legal perspective, that the U.S. laws, and we have 80 patents. We want to make sure that there are reasons why we're not in China, that we're not manufacturing in India, and other places. Is that we want to make sure that solid, grounded law, that the patents are protected, and so that's going to take some time. I think we first came down here, earlier in the year, and it took us at least a good 6 to 7 months to get our hands around everything to where we got to a yes, and then we're off to the races. What did I learn ahead of time is just ask around to who some of those best people are, best practices. There sometimes are multiple people doing certain fields. Try to get to the best people just as quickly as you can, so you don't waste a whole lot of time. Best law firms, best landlords, best tax credit players that are out there, the right government officials that are really going to bless your plan. And it's all about just maximizing everybody's time, so you can, if it's a good decision for your company, that you can get to that yes just as quickly as possible. And we look at Puerto Rico as a place that we can really scale. This is supply chain diversification for us. We only develop our drug right now in California, and it's on an earthquake, in an earthquake-prone area. Not that we don't have hurricanes here, but you see a hurricane coming. And so, this is a place that we believe would stem, and we're with interviewing people now. We're interviewing people in Boston that want to move back to Puerto Rico to work here, because they had to move there because there really wasn't the right type of job here. And so really, people are coming back to Puerto Rico. Not only do you have the talent that's here that we can hire, but we have talent that are in a lot of these major biotech hubs around the country so the talent has been impressive.
Great, thanks. Raj, you're raising capital. Can you talk about how the capital environment is in Puerto Rico and differences between other jurisdictions and the challenges that you face there, or considerations there?
Yeah, thanks, Will. I think much to what Buddy was saying, the challenge that Puerto Rico has is the perception challenge largely, and as I think we're all picking out, there's undervalued talent, undervalued capacity and capability in some ways, but getting that message across to investors, especially those who are not from this part of the world, is a factor in that journey. I'd also say, as a bit of a segue from your question, and also to tie into what Buddy was talking about, Puerto Rico has historically had these strong knowledge assets, but they've been often in the service of large companies. So it's been a division of a large device company or a large pharma company that will locate here. The sort of journey that we are pursuing is actually inverting that value chain. So we intend to do a lot of our R&D here. We also have collaborators in, from places like Stanford and Harvard and MIT, but we are planning to do much of our R&D here because we believe there's value to be gained here. So getting that story to come together as a compelling logic for why the kinds of advantages that my other co-panelists have been talking about in combination with world-class R&D can actually make this a value driver so that in fact intellectual property can be grown and groomed on the island is a massive challenge. But it's also, I would say, the sort of challenge that Puerto Rico needs to cultivate, because there should ideally be many such smart weaves that get birthed on the island. That is really the opportunity. And so as part of what we are doing, we're trying to figure out what should that ecosystem look like. The kinds of rigmarole that we just heard about is a thing of the past, so that in fact there could be an expedited process for certain types of R&D forward companies to locate here and grow here, and actually be born here and be birthed here. In our we have a bit of a mantra when we talk about this, is that often when you, for example, you open a computer made by Apple and you see it says in the box designed in California, we'd like for the same to apply to when people use SmartWeave devices in the future, designed in Puerto Rico. And that's really the goal for us. And so that's what we need to convince investors is going to be a future that's very viable.
Great, thanks, Raj. Daniel, you've done development in India and China, and you've been subject to FDA inspections. Talk to us about the difficulties that those countries are going to face over the next 10 years, and how a transition to more U.S.-based drug manufacturing might be in the cards. And what are some of the challenges of working with an Indian manufacturer versus a U.S. manufacturer?
Great. Great question. I think we've been dealing with this for a while in our company. So in the U.S., we take it for granted that drug manufacturing have the quality that the FDA is looking for. So that's basically, if you work in the life science area, that's basically ingrained in your mind. That's what you need to do, is the quality. Because I think the model is like, just in case one day one of your loved ones will need the medicine, and you're glad that you actually build the quality in it. So in the US, that's what we're thinking. The quality is number one. However, that's not the same with other countries. Like for instance, India. There's no one company in India actually get approved in the US. And there was one. If I answer this question before, I would tell you that there was only one company was approved in the US, and that company's approval was actually get rescinded. So it's very hard to work with like companies like India, where they because of the low cost, they cannot install all those quality in there. And because of that, because every time we help an Indian company to say, hey, look, you need to do this, you need to do this. And then the first thing they say is like, wow, you added cost. And therefore, they basically, they can't, even if they wanted to, because then the cost will be, will wipe out their profit. So it's really difficult. And one of the things that we've been helping so not a lot of Indian company wanted to they cannot come over to the US because they don't have the quality mindset that the FDA is looking for. So we've been trying to help them to do that. And couple of clients that we have, we basically say, hey, look, you go ahead and do everything that you have. Do your manufacturing for the Indian market, is fine. If you want to come to the US, come over to Puerto Rico. We help you with the quality. We're manufacturing for you. So I think that's the difference. Same thing with China. China right now, because of the cost control of the product, they basically focus on cost instead of quality. So it's a totally different mindset. Mm-hmm.
That's great. Thanks, Daniel. So, Buddy, you're a real estate expert. Can you project over the next 10 years what you see happening in the life sciences real estate environment? What's going to happen in terms of commercial real estate here on the island, especially as it relates to life sciences?
Certainly. Well, as we saw, there were a lot of pharma companies, that left when some of the tax laws changed, and it created a lot of inventory of buildings that that we have potentially at our disposal to take a look at to build the R&D at very low prices. To buy some of these buildings in other places would be many multiples and many times more than what you can potentially get down here in Puerto Rico. And I'd mentioned earlier, and probably didn't spend a whole lot of time on it, that during COVID, what we saw is that, we all heard about it, India stopped shipping things that were U.S. manufacturers in India. They couldn't ship it out of the country. You heard about the same thing in China. And so basically some of these life-saving drugs were not able to be shipped to the U.S. And that really bothered, obviously, a lot of the politicians. And they had to come up with a solution. So in many respects now, it has to be made in the USA if you want to sell certain types of drugs and devices and have Medicaid or Medicare to pay for it. And so I would imagine, and I'm already seeing it, and I'm hearing about it, that there are these companies, whether they're in India or China or other places, that now really don't have access to the U.S. to be able to sell their products. And so I think, from a Puerto Rico perspective, and me for selfish reasons, look, I'm going to be competing with other countries like China and India that want to move their manufacturing and some of their R&D to Puerto Rico, to mainland U.S., because they're shut out of that market. And so I do believe the next 10 years looks very, very bright in the life science business for Puerto Rico, where, we're going to get a lot of these companies that are really cutting edge, because there are a lot of financial reasons why they're just simply going to have to move here.
Thanks, Buddy.
So I'm very bullish.
Raj, you've built a number of big businesses, and you did that in different ecosystems. What are some of the obvious things that are missing in Puerto Rico that need to be fixed in order to have a reliable, scalable business environment?
Yeah, Buddy, that's an important question. I've thought about this even outside the panel a bunch, because I keep comparing my experience. And what I touched on it even in my last response is the one thing that seems to be missing is that the system is got too many interfaces, too many touch points. And you've heard some of my other co-panelists talk about the kind of complexity and opaqueness that it presents to outsiders, or people who haven't built in Puerto Rico before. And at some level, that's, in certain ways, self-serving to the firms that are here or already established, but it deters new entrants, or certainly entrants which have strong R&D capability or interest, from setting up here. And if they aren't already a large multinational or a large financial group that is simply adding an extension to their balance sheet, it presents another set of challenges. And that's unfortunate, because those are the kinds of companies that the island needs to attract to change its sort of balance of payments issues and the kinds of economic deficits and so on. Because again, once you start for Puerto Rico to become a place where intellectual property, intellectual value is generated as opposed to simply harnessed, you'd start seeing much larger revenues and royalties and licenses, especially in the kinds of industries we are running, start accruing to the balance sheet for the economy. And that's a real problem. And so from a comparative perspective, having a one-stop shop, almost a one-window kind of clearance for certain types of industries, which the island does see as important as regional drivers of growth, there could be a way to build a clearance operation that all these things can happen quickly. Within literally 24 hours, 48 hours, you can get your clearances and your letters of intent and your registrations all in a very streamlined way. And if that could be done, that would be huge. Because I personally know of so many companies, whether it's in Silicon Valley and Boston and some of the other major industrial centers, certainly in the United States, but also outside, who would really consider this as a viable option, because they don't then have to navigate this Byzantine web of connections and relationships, which obviously over time we've built too, but it's taken longer, and wish it had been much simpler. So that would be a gift that we'd want to give to next generation of companies like ours who are looking to truly start up from the island.
Great, thank you. Daniel, you're involved with the PR Tech Hub initiative with Ocean Bio. Can you talk just generally about that program and what's going on in Puerto Rico?
What program you're talking about?
The PR Tech Hub, where they got a grant to plan out to get $50 to $60 million to become a biotech hub.
Oh, the technology hub that
Yeah.
they just granted. Mhm. So, I think this is the federal grant that I think there were like seven area that received that grant, and Puerto Rico get about $70 million of that grant. So what they want to do is basically use that grant to develop a technology hub, and then we basically one of the sponsor of that hub, and then we will create that. And one of the things that we were trying to do is introduce that hub, get people to come in and invest. I think Raj mentioned it a little bit earlier, trying to get some of the R&D companies to come in, right? I know that in the past, Puerto Rico is basically attracted a lot of big companies like Amgen and Avi and all that. They develop everything from outside and then basically transfer the technology over here and do our manufacturing. What we're trying to do is to basically capture the R&D side in Puerto Rico. So, and I'm from California. We always said that in California, a lot of companies want to capture the XP while they were still working in their garage. A small company do R&D and then organic growth. So I think the technology hub will create that opportunity for a lot of those R&D companies to come in. So that's what we planning to do, is to help them get the technology hub here. I'm hoping that Puerto Rico will be either in the same sentence when people talking about life science technology hub, it'll be like California, Massachusetts, and Puerto Rico.
Great, thanks, Daniel. So I want to leave enough time for questions. So any final thoughts from the panelists about kind of considerations in operating a business in Puerto Rico?
Well, I'll take just a quick minute. I mean, my overall sense, and again, I've been doing developments and investing in a lot of different businesses through my family office. But someone may say this is too good to be true, but it is an amazing benefit for companies like ours that are small, that have 15 people, to be able to get the kind of incentives to grow a business, because cash is king. And if you run out of it, of course, we all know you're done. I don't know, you can have the smartest people in the world, but so the longer you can extend that runway on a good idea, the better chance you're going to have that your company is going to be something one day. And I do believe that that one of the best recipes in the world is the infrastructure with the people and the different types of grants and incentives that these small businesses can get, like Rialto.
Yeah, I'll take a minute as well. We've talked a lot about the factor inputs, economic incentives, technology advantages. But in my humble opinion, one of the biggest advantages Puerto Rico has is the vibrant culture and the warmth and dynamism and sort of native entrepreneurial fabric is really unusual, and it's an advantage that really the economy needs to build on and can spawn hundreds of companies like ours.
One of the pieces that I always thought about is Puerto Rico. The biotech biotech companies in the Puerto Rico is actually the best kept secret for Puerto Rico. No one in the industry I talk to that knows that basically majority of the product, the drug product that they have actually manufactured in Puerto Rico. I think Puerto Rican government, in addition to basically advertising for the tourism and all that, should spend a lot of time on saying, hey, look, this is the biggest biotech or biologic drug manufacturing in the world. Come to Puerto Rico. Don't keep that as the best kept secret here. Just let everybody know.
Great, thanks, Daniel. So I just want to say thank you to the panel. These are been there, done that, successful entrepreneurs sharing insights that I echo and I think are very valuable for the conference.